All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the session today. We're so glad you're here with us. George, I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to talk AI. It's going to be a great conversation, great session. Got some special things in store for everybody. Welcome, man. Glad to see you.
I'm excited about this, Ben, just because this is one of the areas you got so many passions, right? We can talk about ice cream, we can talk about shoes for me, we can talk about acronyms for both of us. But to know like your story behind AI, and this is something I've been pushing for because I get excited when you smile, my friend. And I know this is something that you're very passionate about. A lot of people talk about it, and some people are about it, but I think if people are going to see today just behind the things, what AI truly is and what it can do and what it's not, and all the other bluff that somebody like me may talk about AI. And I just say, Ben knows. So.
Yeah. Everybody's got a guy. And when it comes to culture, purpose, like George is my guy. And I think I'm the AI guy for you. So we're so glad all of you are here with us. If this is your first time at one of our streams, it is going to be just like this. We're a little casual. We will have great sessions and content, but in between, you'll hear commentary from each of us. We'll dive into this. Again, we'll have a little bit of fun because this work is serious enough. We don't need any more serious. Let's have a little bit of fun with it. So we're excited that you're all here. Go ahead again. I'm seeing people in the chat already chiming in. Let us know where you're listening in from, what you're excited about today, anything you're hoping to hear or learn from some of our amazing speakers. We have summer school alumni and friend Nicole Eisdorfer is one of our speakers today. We have our partners at Daxtra who are sponsoring and supporting the session today. So let's do a couple of our housekeeping things, get that checked off and out of the way, and then we'll move on with some more content. So let's get this pulled up here and tell you what to expect. So today, as you said, George, we're really getting into what is real, what's happening, what's hype, what's sort of not reality, what AI cannot do, and when you stop talking about it, and then what it means for our future. And we'll give you some really helpful advice and input today as we go through this. As always on our live streams, we're going to be giving some stuff away. We're going to give away, I was talking to the team yesterday about, it feels weird to say this out loud, like $1,000 worth of stuff. So we're going to be giving away a lot of digital courses and content around our training on this. So giving those things away. I may give away a couple copies of the brand new book as well. So we'll see. So stay engaged, stay in the chat, be helpful, be supportive, ask questions, chime in. That's how you are eligible to win. And you have to be registered. And that banner at the bottom of the page will tell you how to do that for the entire duration today. In case you happen to find this stream, that's how you get signed up. So get signed up there to do that. We will have HRCI and SHRM credits shared at the end of the stream today. And so if for the 2.0 credit hours that any of you want to get, that credit will be shared at the end. And then this is a live stream. Timings are approximate. So goodness, I'd love to say that this exact agenda is exactly what it's going to look like today. But George, has there ever been one we've done where it's exactly spot on? I don't think so.
It happens, man. We get very passionate about something. We get in feedbacks, questions in the comments there that the attendees are giving us. Sometimes we got to pivot. I think in the HR space, one thing I've learned as I've been adopted into this HR space is that we're all proactive. We try to be proactive, but sometimes there's something in the chat that it causes us to react, and we got to be able to answer those questions. And so flexibility is the key word. Flexibility.
Okay. Flexibility. There we go. I'll take that. That's way better than being disorganized and being too chatty. Flexibility. That sounds so much more professional. So we're doing our quick opening here for all of you. In just a moment, we'll transition over. I just last week was hosting an event here in Huntsville, Alabama, where I'm based, and we had a videographer on site. So I grabbed him, pulled him aside, and we did a quick recording of a keynote that I've been planning for this event. Put the slides back in. So that's going to look really nice. I'm excited to have you hear that, share those things with you. First time I've shared specifically this type of conversation around AI before. And so I think there's going to be some good nuggets and ideas in there that you can take away as key things to be thinking about, and good segue into some of the other conversations that you'll hear today. So we're going to hear from Daxtra's CTO, Don Tomlinson, or DT, as he likes to be called. We're going to talk to him as a technology leader, as a product leader that's building the tools we're talking about. It was really interesting for me to hear from him what this means and what the opportunities are. Our good friend, again, Nicole Eisdorfer, we're going to be hearing from her about asking questions and rethinking some of this and pushing the boundaries of what's possible. So she and I are dangerous when you put us in a conversation together, because even more than you and I, George, we just like go all over the place, but it's because we're so passionate about this.
I'm glad there's somebody else.
Yeah, I'm going to turn the tables on you. I'm going to actually query you, grill you maybe with some questions about, in all this other discussion about AI, I don't want us to forget about the purpose, the human, the connection piece, and that's where your strength really lies. So I want to talk about that in this, and I get to ask you some questions and put you to the test on how people can keep the human at the center. And then we'll finish with a keynote panel today. So Sandra Laughlin, Lane McFarland, friends of Lighthouse, friends of Ben and George, and we're excited to hear from them because they are two HR talent learning leaders who are doing the stuff that you're doing every day. And I'm asking them some of the hard questions and some of the big opportunities that we have. What's the value to you as an individual? What's the value to you as a team? What's the value to your business when it comes to AI? And we get some really good ideas from them. We'll wrap up, give some things away today. And again, timings are approximate. So the only other thing I'll throw in here really quick before we get started is the publisher would steal my children if I didn't tell you that the book, the third edition of the book is coming out in just about a week from the air date today. As we're going live. So if you would like to get a copy of that, it's on Amazon, everywhere else. It's available for pre-sale. The way that I talk in the session that you're about to hear in just a few minutes is the same way that book is written. It's not meant to be academic. It's not meant to be technical, which is a struggle for a publisher that does a lot of academic stuff. And I had to push back on, no, this has to be very practical, useful, conversational, because I'm not an AI programmer and neither are you. We're here to serve the people. And if this helps us do that, great. If it gets in the way of that, it may not be the best solution for us. And we'll get into more of those things as we go today. George, I didn't ask you on that agenda, besides me getting to grill you, is there anything specific you're looking forward to or excited about?
So for me, and this is an outsider again, for me, I'm looking to learn new things. I have yet, previously I used to be able to get a sneak peek of the book. So I'm excited about, some of the things you're going to be sharing about the book. I'm going to be commenting as well, because I'm trying to win a book along with all our attendees. That's never been done, ladies and gentlemen. I'm trying to win a book. But I'm interested in the conversation you have with Daxtra. Again, I'm coming in for the first time, not having some of these conversations or hearing about it. So I'm excited about all things AI. For me, to put it very simple, I'm tired of the hype. So what's hype? I want to learn what that is and what it really means for us to be able to use it, to be able to essentially get better and efficient.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, awesome. Well, I think you'll get some of that today in the conversations. So let's go ahead. We'll jump into this first session, and let's hear from me. Weirdly, let's hear some of the thoughts that I have around this as the book's coming out. I've seen this iteration over the last 10 years. Third edition of this book. So much has changed, and yet some things have not changed at all. Let's jump into this conversation. I'm Ben Eubanks, and today I want to talk about being human in the age of AI. More specifically, being human resources in the age of AI. See, there's so much news about this, the headlines I'll talk about, what's changing at work, and we are at the forefront of so many of those conversations. And today I want to go through some of the things that truly are changing, some things that aren't, and what the opportunities are for us in that environment. The thing that this makes me think of is my 15-year-old daughters have just started driving. And I don't know if you've gone through that experience yourself, but it's very interesting transitioning back to the passenger seat. Suddenly you're at the mercy of somebody else. Suddenly you have no more control. You feel helpless in some ways. And when I talk to HR leaders about AI and what's happening in that world, many of them feel the same way. We're just riding along. We're going to wait and see what happens. We're going to see what someone else tells us to do, or we just feel kind of helpless about this whole change. And today I want to give you some insight and some ideas on how you can change that mentality. If you're one of those people that feels helpless or hopeless, I want to make you curious. If you're curious, I'm going to make you excited. If you're excited, buckle in, because we're going to get into some of the good things that you can do to take advantage of this new opportunity we have. See, the AI landscape is changing. In the last few years, I've talked to more than 100 different providers of HR technology. They're building these tools to hire, to pay, to keep employees, and they're trying to help employers solve big problems, and they've built these AI tools across the spectrum. On top of that, we're seeing generative AI tools like ChatGPT and others that are emerging. We have to suddenly become experts in how to use these things. And then the latest craze is all around AI agents and agentic AI and what that means for us. All of these things are happening. And at the same time, we're seeing news stories like IBM's where they replaced hundreds of their HR team members with algorithms. Now, when that news came out, there were people that said, this is great, it's about time. And there are others that said, what is happening? How could this be? And regardless of where you fall on that spectrum, I want you to realize that change is going to happen. And we either change ourselves or we just have to respond to it, react to it, feel like we're in the passenger seat and have no control. One of my favorite quotes that really highlights this is from Alvin Toffler. He said that the illiterate of our century won't be those that can't read or write, but those that can't learn, unlearn, and relearn. And we're having to do that right now every single day. Now, all of these things are happening, and I actually ran across a friend of mine, works for a government agency recently, and he was telling me about this story that illustrates this so well. He said they're moving their operations from one part of the country to another. And as part of that move, they offered the existing employees there a chance to rebid, recompete for their jobs. And if they were accepted, they would move their family, full relocation, no questions asked. And many of those employees took early retirement, quit, or just instantly unplugged from their work because they didn't think they were competitive anymore. Think about how that would feel for you. If someone told you tomorrow when you showed up at work, you had to recompete for your job against someone who has more recent training, someone who has new ideas, someone who has new tools to do the job. That would feel really scary, and it'd be a tough place to be. Not only that, but those companies I was talking about a minute ago that have built these AI technologies for our work, they're doing some things that we have done for a very long time. There are tools right now where a candidate can go and apply for a job. It will vet and screen them automatically. And if they're found to be suitable, it can send them a job offer at the current market rate without someone talking to them, without any interaction with us. It can do all of that completely automatically. There are tools that are using AI to set pay rates. There are tools that are using AI to develop training rapidly and with a more comprehensive nature than we could ourselves. All of those things are happening, and all those are true. And those are things that we have done as HR and talent leaders ourselves. But there are other things that can do even better than us. There's a benefits company I ran across recently, and they were telling me about the algorithm they've built that can look at the claims data from an employer and actually indicate which employees may have the beginnings of an illness they don't even know about yet. Like, hey, so-and-so has pre-diabetic tendencies. Do they even know this? And they can help employers step in and help that person when it's a problem this big versus when it's this big. Those are all examples of things that we have done historically, and some things newer that we can't even do ourselves because we don't have the ability to see the way that AI does. And hearing those things may be scary. How about this? One more thing to put a little bit of fear into you, just so you're at the edge of your seat. Based on what I can see across the market, about 70% of the work that we do as talent leaders can already be done by AI. How's that? Now, if that's the case, what does that mean for us? Is Ben here just to give us a doom cloud? No, absolutely not. I want to give you some idea of what AI can't do. After sharing those things, here's some things that it cannot do that need to get done every day at work. For starters, AI cannot handle uncertainty. They're programmed to handle certain situations, very narrow parameters. It needs lots of feedback to train a model. And I don't know about you, but many of my days as an HR leader varied greatly. You never saw the same problem twice. It was so different day to day. And because of that, that uncertainty is something that AI can't easily handle. AI cannot build trust. The last time, think about this, the last time you walked up to someone that you had just met, maybe a new person on your team, maybe a new leader in your business, and you shook their hand, you look them in the eye, that seed you planted right there was a seed of trust that hopefully sprouted into something bigger and more fruitful over time. AI cannot build trust in that same sort of way. AI cannot understand culture. Maybe it can quantify some of the behaviors or the actions at work. It can define some of the ways people interact, but it can't tell you what it feels like when you walk into an environment and you feel one of two things. You walk in and you feel like there's a lot of energy here. People are excited. I can feel the collaboration. People are doing good things. Or you walk into the environment that says, wow, I feel like I'm already losing my soul just stepping through the doors. This place is not where I want to be. That level of culture and connection at work is something that AI cannot replicate. It can't understand it at the level that we can. Not only that, but AI cannot mentor other people. People are asking AI questions today that they should not be. They're using that as a substitute for human interaction and human relationships, and in some cases, it's costing them tremendously. There's a story in the news recently about a gentleman who got a disease that we thought was eradicated because he was following advice from an algorithm on how to deal with a medical condition. And instead of asking a real person, he asked that. Think about the times where someone has reached back to help you up, to give you a hand in a workplace situation, a workplace context, or even in your own personal life. That mentoring is a human fundamental, and it's something AI cannot do. When I think about the best workplaces I've ever been in, one of the things that set them apart was there was a level of acceptance, respect, and appreciation there, a sense of belonging, where someone knows that they're in the right place, and it's not an academic thing, it's not a math thing, it's just something that you can feel because of the interactions, the experiences that you have. We can create that kind of environment. It's one of the things that we do best, but AI cannot. And last of the 6 here, something that AI can't do is it cannot take responsibility. Like many of you, I have had to sit across from someone at the workplace and look them in the eye and say, listen, your performance scores are great. You've been an incredible employee. Your leaders love you. And in spite of all those things, we lost this contract you're working on and we can't keep you. AI can't take the responsibility the way that we can, the way that we have in many of those situations where we have to step up and say, here's what we're going to do to try to make it right. Here's how we're going to help in the middle of this tough challenge, but we have to take responsibility. AI does not. In each of these instances and in others, these are examples of things that are true human work that can't be automated, that can't be delegated, that can't be handed off to an algorithm because it's not designed to do those things. And when people talk about, oh, AI will do this stuff so we can do other stuff, no one ever talks about that other stuff. And these are examples of what that can be. And how many of those tie into our work as talent leaders and HR leaders? Most of them. Now, the other thing I want you to hear is that AI thinks about people in terms of numbers, in terms of variables, and humans defy quantification. Here's what I mean by that. I was reading a story in the book, The Flaw of Averages, around the US Air Force. And they were crashing a significant number of planes. I don't know what a significant number is, but any of them seems like it's pretty significant. And so they were trying to figure out what was causing this. And they started looking at the pilots and said, you know what, I wonder if the pilots of the day are a different size than the pilots the cockpits were designed around originally. So they had their team of IR psychologists, their HR team, go in and measure thousands of pilots on over 100 different metrics, everything from the length of their thumb to how far it is from their ear to their eye, their height, everything you can imagine. And then some things that are a little creepy and weird they had to measure. And they went through all these things and said, okay, the average pilot is this tall, their arms are this long, their feet are this big, and they put together this average number. And then one of the researchers got a little curious, and he said, I wonder how many people truly are average on all those metrics. And he went back through all of those thousands of pilots, looked at their numbers on all these things, and he found that even for just 10 measurements, there wasn't a single person that actually was average on all those things. That's a great illustration of the fact that humans are not averages. Average works in math, average works in numbers. Humans are not average. They defy quantification. In a world where AI is being seen as the answer to everything, as the answer to every problem, as a solution to every challenge, we have to hear that anything people-related is going to be a problem there because AI sees people as problems. AI sees people as challenges to overcome. AI sees people as hindrances to its objective or its goal. What do you see when you look at the people around you at work? When you look at the people who sign into that next Zoom meeting, you get the little Brady Bunch square around you. What do you see? Do you see problems and challenges? Because I know for me, people are not a problem to be solved, they're humans to be served. That's what drew me into HR in the first place, and for many of you, it's probably the same thing. You may say, yeah, sure, I like people, and I've heard people say, listen, once you've been in it for a while, you don't like people anymore. It's because we see the best and the worst. We see the challenges, we see the difficulties, but the things that bring us back day after day after day are the opportunity to see the best and to help people be their best when it comes to work. About a year ago, I was sitting down with my grandmother, and she was in the hospital. She was not doing well, and I didn't know if this was going to be the last conversation that I ever had with her. And so I was very curious about her and how she was doing, and all she wanted to talk about was my family, my kids, my work, how travel was going, those sorts of things that she cared deeply about. She was so concerned about other people and what they needed, and we have to be the same way. I'll say that forever, for as long as I've been in and around the HR space, that is what defines a great person, a great professional in this field, is someone that cares about others, that is considerate of what they need. And I don't think that's going to change at any point in the future. The best companies still have that edge where they care deeply about the people. So I want to leave you with these 3 takeaways, 3 things you can think about and go do as we're walking out of this and transition to our other content today. I want you to be thinking about some opportunities that you have right in front of you. First, you have to keep learning like your career depends on it, because it does. Every day, things are changing, and if you stop and you rest and you just sit back and assume, I know enough, you are going to start falling behind. That exact moment, standing still, is falling behind. And it isn't enough just to know about our space and our industry. You have to know about the tools. Yes. You have to know about how people interact at work. We are the experts on humans in the workplace. We have to continue understanding and honing our understanding of how people interact in that context. We have to understand what our business does and how it makes money and how we can plug in to that with the resources that we have. But we also have to know ourselves. There's a great book written years ago by Gay Hendricks. And in it, he talks about the zones of work that we have. There are 4 of them. There's a zone of incompetence. There's a zone of competence, zones of excellence, and zones of genius. And we should all be striving to spend more time in those zones of genius, because that's where our best work comes from. We can do those things better than 99% of the people out there. And we have to know what ours is and work on carving and sculpting our work to fit more into that zone of genius, because that's where you are going to stand out and create the most value for yourself and the most value for the company you're working for. Number 2 on that list is to prioritize the human elements we talked about today. Those things that AI cannot do. Being creative, being curious, adapting to change, handling uncertainty, taking responsibility. Those are things that algorithms cannot do, and we have to build those skills. Don't just treat it like a task. Treat it like a muscle you're building, and do that over and over, because it's going to get stronger as you do. And last but not least, I want you to think about this. In a world where all these stories are out there, many of them are designed to get us to click on them, to get us to read them, to get us to be a little afraid, because that means we're going to come back and read it again. That's the whole point of the news. If it bleeds, it leads. And I want you to choose hope over fear. I decided many years ago that I will not make decisions purely based on fear, because you make a short-term decision that doesn't serve you in the long term. And I'm not thinking about what's going to make you happy today. I want you to stop and think about that moment when you finish, when you retire, when you look back at your career and your legacy. And I want you to smile, thinking about the impact that you had, not just on the projects and the tasks, but on the people ultimately, because that's really what it's all about. All right, George. People, is that what it's all about?
It is. I was going to say, Ben, can you tell me a little bit about what you thought about Ben speaking and using an AI for? I think there's so much. I love the comments that are coming in. So continue to comment, continue to drop some of the key takeaways that you have. Ben, when you got to the point where you talked about obviously what AI cannot do, and for me, that's where I like raise my hands, and I'm excited. I'm clapping, I'm shouting, I'm waving. If I had whatever you love, ice cream, I'll throw ice cream at the computer screen here to say thank you, because I think as we look at the complexity, but also the simplicity of what AI can do and provide for us, I always said AI cannot replace HI. We need human intelligence. We need, and sometimes I will say we need human common sense is how I would put it. But one of the things to take away, obviously, because I'm passionate about it, is how do we create that belonging? How do we create that connected trust, that psychological safety, the things that AI cannot do? My favorite quote that you said, and I wrote it down here: humans aren't a math problem to be solved. There are people to be served. And I always look at this, Ben, as earlier on in my life, in my nonprofit days, I always said, are you wearing an apron or are you wearing a bib? That was my philosophy. Are you here to be served or to serve? And I think sometimes AI is here. We use it to serve people, but really to be served, we got to realize that we need human. We got to have action. We have to be boots on the ground, hands and feet to our people. Because AI is not going to hug you when you lose a loved one and you go to the HR, your leader. AI is not going to have empathy or know how to do those things. And so as much of a tool as it is, the key is we have to be human at the end of the day and stay connected.
Man, goodness. I'm watching all the comments, everybody. I appreciate all of you for the kind words. George, when you and I started talking about doing this event, I said, this is kind of weird for me, because I talk about this stuff, but I don't always like being in the spotlight for that purpose. But this is on my heart, not just in my head. This is one of those things in my heart that I think everybody needs to hear, that the human connection, all the ways that I could reinforce that, whether it's the metaphor of me being a passenger, goodness gracious, for my children driving now, which is wonderful and terrifying at the same time, or it's the example of all these other things where you can't quantify a human. You cannot say, here's the number that defines George, because George is not a number. Yeah. Those things, all of those to me tell big stories and are so powerful. And we have to keep those in mind when all the other stuff is just hype and buzz and AI is doing all these things. It's amazing. And this company's replacing people and all those kind of things. It's so easy to get caught up in that and forget the pieces that are so important. And like you said, right, I don't want to get caught on the negative side, right? Hugging someone when something bad happened to them. I want to get caught on I want to give someone a high five when they have killed a sales goal, or when someone has hit that career milestone that they've been working towards for 5 years, and I've seen them building and building and building. I want to be able to congratulate them on that. All of those sorts of things, positive or negative, are opportunities for us to make a human connection around something. And I don't want to lose any of that. Okay. Yeah. Woo, goodness. Somebody told me I was preaching already, and there you go. That's what you're getting. That's what you're getting. So, oh my goodness. All right. I'm going to get this other session queued up. So our second session today is going to be with Don Tomlinson. Don is the Chief Technology Officer over at Daxtra. And Don and I talk about some of the things that he sees as a technology builder. So again, not a technology builder. I see a lot of it. I talk about it. I write about it. And I'm perceiving it as an HR practitioner. But Don is the person who's actually building these things behind the scenes. And so I got to ask him some questions and pressure him a little bit on, okay, fine. I put you in a driver's seat. Let's say you're an HR leader tomorrow. What would you do? What would you ignore? What would you latch onto? And so you'll hope you hear that conversation, enjoy it thoroughly. Let's jump into the discussion here with Don from Daxtra and hear what he has to say. Hey, everyone. I know you've been enjoying the live stream today, getting lots of good ideas, learning some new things, having your horizons broadened. We'll put it that way. And we're going to do that for this next 20 minutes or so here with DT, Don Tomlinson over at Daxtra. I'm so excited to be here with you and look forward to getting into this stuff because as not just working for a tech company, but as the tech guy there, like this is going to be a really fun conversation. So welcome.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
No, absolutely. So before we get into some of the fun stuff we're going to talk about today, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Don Tomlinson. I'm the Chief Technology and Product Officer over at Daxtra. I've been at Daxtra for about 1.5 years now, but I have been in HR technology since 2000. I work for companies like Connexa, IBM, Talent Plus, UKG. But I'm really excited to meet with you today, Ben. To be honest, I love data. I love the way in which it's transforming HR. So to me, it's a really exciting time to be in HR tech. And so hopefully we can talk about some of that cool work today. So excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I was like, goodness, you went back to like 2000. That's a lot of HR tech that you've seen. Some that you're like, thank goodness that's no longer what it was. And some of the stuff you're like again, some of the things I'm hearing from the team at Daxtra, there's some pretty cool stuff that's both here and on the horizon. So I'm excited to get into some of your big thinking around this as we go today. Let's start off with something that I think everyone probably thinks about when they hear AI and they hear hiring in the same sentence. They think about some of the challenges around that, some of the potential for bias, things like that. Talk about what responsible AI use looks like when it comes to recruiting and hiring.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that responsible AI can be great. And one of the things that we hear sometimes is AI just going to make a bad hire faster, right? Let's just, for me, what I see as AI, to me, responsible AI means you're building trust with your users, right? It's as simple as that. You're ensuring fairness, transparency, and accountability. Responsible AI can be built into the process in multiple ways. First, it means that you're doing bias mitigation. You have a diverse data set that you can build your AI off of. And so it really brings a lot into the process. It also, responsible AI to me, and this is, I think, the most important thing, it's about transparency and explainability. When people ask me, like, when should I trust AI and when should I not trust AI? I always say, listen, if you can explain it, then you can probably trust it. I think of it a little bit like, maybe you've heard this analogy of, go to the baseball game, you buy a hot dog, you love the hot dog because it tastes great, but you don't want to know how it's made, right? I think it's the same thing, but the complete opposite with AI, right? You go in, you get your AI, it does work, but you do need to know how it was made. You need to know exactly how it was made just so that you can explain why it's so good. So we don't want to know how the hot dogs were made, even though we love them. This is different with AI. We have to know exactly how those are made. And then finally, just ensuring that data privacy and compliance are wrapped into that as well. So for me, rather than just using AI to automate a flawed process, we really need to build responsible AI into the data. Then we're going to be able to get into a place where humans are making decisions. So notice I said humans are making those. AI is not going to replace those. And so for me, responsible AI within recruiting is making sure that we're building trust within our users and we're empowering our teams to make better decisions.
I love that as you're talking about like there's automation, there's AI, like they're conflated together, like they're the same thing. They're different things. But the transparency piece, like automation, is just going to do that process, that task, and it's going to do it. And we know what it's doing. We don't need to ask the question. But for AI, when it's making a recommendation or a prediction, we need that transparency. And to me, I've never stopped to think about those things. Like that's one of the key differentiators between those two is there has to be transparency in how it got to whatever that recommendation would be. This candidate to hire, this person to move forward in the process, this training off someone, whatever the use case is within that HR bubble, it's got to come down to that transparency component because ultimately, as talent leaders, everyone out there listening to us right now, they're not going to say, "Oh, don't worry, it's okay. It's the AI's fault." It's no, you are the one who picked this, and so you've got to have that justification. That transparency is where you get that comfort and that confidence in whatever the AI might be.
Yeah, it does help you explain the why. So when
Mm.
a hiring manager comes to you and says, "Why was this person recommended?" Well, that's where you're able to answer that question and then build trust in that individual who's also asking those questions.
Yeah, that's responsible AI as trust as a component too. I need that one on a t-shirt. I'm going to actually talk to the team about that one. That we'll have to quote you on that one, DT. But I think that's a great way to put that because that gives us a level. Again, I use confidence, but that's the easiest way for me to explain that. I can trust the decision this is making. Just like if you ask a friend of yours, I want to ask about hot dogs, but you ask a friend of yours for a recommendation for a place to take your family out to eat. Like they know you, they know generally what you like. They're not going to say go to this place when they know you're going to hate it. They're going to
Yeah,
tell you something they know about you because you trust and there's trust there. So
yeah.
there's some confidence. Okay. So that's a good starting point there. Well, again, I started this off. You are the technology expert. You're building the product. You're the chief technology officer there at Daxtra. So when you're interacting with and hearing from HR leaders, talent acquisition leaders, and they're telling you, goodness, like all this stuff is just overwhelming. I've got a full-time job and now I've got to know all this AI stuff. Where do you think they should start? How do they start getting comfortable with this new part of their job that's now a reality?
So first of all, I do think TA and HR leaders are overwhelmed right now. I think they're getting it from two different sides. So first of all, there's a lot of things that they have been doing for a long time. And some of these are tasks that maybe not are value added tasks, but it gives them visibility into the process. And Ben, we talked about this little in our first conversation. There's this theory of AI FOMO, right? So now all of a sudden you were a part of all of these things before, and now you're being said, don't worry about those things. Now
Mhm.
you're going to go focus on something else. And you have this fear of missing out of what's still happening over there. What happened in the screening? How did I get shortlisted from 1,000 down to 100 candidates? And so there's a little bit of fear of, I don't know what's for sure going on over there. But then the other side of that is just the pace of change. It's how quickly things are changing right now. You don't quite know what is hype and what's reality. So I was over at HR Tech Europe over in Amsterdam, and I had done a presentation on AI. And a gal came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, listen, I'm on a task force at our organization. We're trying to figure out where we should go with AI. Where should we start?" My advice to her was, I wouldn't even think about AI right now because you're already focusing on a solution. I would focus on what are your biggest problems? What are the biggest things your organization is having to contend with? And then once you've identified those top three, four opportunities, then you look at the data. Do you have the data that you can utilize that now AI can help you solve that problem better? And if you have those two things, then you have your start. I'd start small, but I would definitely start with the problem. What is the problem that we're facing? Do I have data to address that? And if yes, now how am I going to bring AI in to solve it? And that's really how I would answer where an individual should start or an organization should start with AI.
The FOMO thing to me, I think back to when I was working as an HR leader and my boss said, "Hey, listen, you're going to start recruiting, but that means you can't do benefits anymore." And I had that moment where like, yeah, but I like seeing what's going on because I feel like it's the pulse of things that are changing and happening. And I feel like I'm going to miss out if I don't have that. So you talk about that in terms of if we now automate something or using AI to solve part of that, the same thing occurs. You have this fear of missing out. The World Economic Forum called it FOBO, fear of becoming obsolete. Like, well, they can do that. What else can it do that I was already doing? Like, goodness, man. So those are real. But your answers there, I love it because it comes down to two key things. Maybe AI is not even the answer. So let's start with that. How about you need a clear problem that you've identified, and then you said data that AI can use? Because if you just know the problem, but you don't have any data, then the answer can't be AI. And if you don't know what the problem is, you're just saying, oh, yes, we need a solution without actually knowing what the problem is, which doesn't make any sense at all. So I think having that clear set of pieces there is what's going to help someone decide that. I want to get your take on this actually. I'm like radically departing from the questions really quickly, but I was talking to the people analytics lead for a company, a financial services company, and he was telling me we're trying to think about where to start with AI. I've been tasked with where to start with this within our HR function. And he said, we're getting pressure to start with it around our employee service delivery and answering employee questions, FAQs, things like that. And he said, that doesn't feel like that's the right place for us to start. What do you think? I said, well, that's not a bad place to have AI helping. There's lots of use cases there, but I said, how many times do you think someone shows up at the executive leadership meeting or the board meeting and says, I just want you to know that we're answering questions 82% faster now when employees ask them? Probably never. But if you showed up and said, hey, we're using some AI on the talent side, and we've looked at that strategic priority that you had as a board, and we actually have the talent ready to staff that within the next 6 months. We already have this many in our pipeline. Like he's like, oh, I said that kind of conversation is going to resonate at a higher level. There's more strategy to it. There's more value. You're nodding over there. Do you think that's probably the right way to go?
I do, because you probably take that example right there, and there's probably a large fear. There's probably a huge problem right now. We have to staff an upcoming important initiative. How are we going to do that? That's a big problem.
Hmm.
Our employees, sometimes they can't find an answer within eight minutes. That's a problem, but that's not the biggest problem to go solve. And so I agree. Like, this is where you start to look at what are the biggest problems we have. And then now that we know the biggest problems, now do I have the data? If the answer is yes to the second question, then absolutely, I think that's the target.
Go get it. All right. If you got a target, go get it. Okay. So thanks for letting me like dive into that one. I was like, I needed a validation from someone who's again a product guy, technology guy. So that helps me a lot. I feel very validated for the moment. One of the things I wanted to touch on here is another one of the challenges, I think, in the space. You talked about overwhelm earlier. You mentioned that. I think one of the challenges around that is that everyone says AI and they all mean something different. Sometimes someone's talking about it within a product context, right? Like Daxtra has built AI pieces that help to extract skills faster and things like that. But when someone else says AI, they're talking about ChatGPT or some sort of off-the-shelf sort of solution. So I think there's an opportunity when it's built into the HR tech stack, not just this one-off sort of I'm answering an email faster or things like that. But tell me, what's your take? What's the real opportunity for AI when it comes to unlocking some of the data that comes or sitting on already probably in their HR tech stack?
Yeah, for me, it's the HRIS, the entire tech stack from HR, benefits, pay, talent acquisition, talent management, right? There's so much data contained in there. And I think a lot of time, maybe we can get a question answered, but that's different than really harvesting value out of all of the data that you have. And value, so to me, the opportunity is value. I have a ton of value in the data I own today. I just am not quite sure how to get to it. So value can look very differently, though, right? So value could be surfacing new talent, or excuse me, surfacing existing talent within your ATS or your CRM or even your HRIS. Thinking about rediscovery within your talent pool, thinking about how you staff projects with current employees, right? It's values through predictive insights. Who is the most likely individual to succeed in a role? Which employees are at risk of leaving, which candidates should I be nurturing for future organization initiatives? All of those can be an enormous value if you string the data together and then utilize AI to summarize it. Value can even look like just having better data. So think about, a lot of organizations have these legacy databases that have been sitting out there forever, and they know there's issues with the data. And so AI can help you clean up the data. It can dedupe all of your candidates and so forth. It can enrich that data. So you can't think of the value actually as being able to take this kind of this legacy liability that you have and being able to utilize AI to turn it into more of a strategic asset. And so, and then that also then would create better experiences for your employees, better experiences for your candidates, better experiences for your recruiters. And so to me, it's being able to take all of that data together and then being able to bring value back into the organization so that they can accomplish a lot of the things that they really need to take care of.
Mm. So the data itself may or may not have value, but if we can see into it, we can understand it, we can perceive it at a level that it tells us the next thing to do, right? One of those problems you talked about earlier, it tells us how to solve one of those problems. That's where we really start to get to the value of it, not just throwing all your data in an algorithm and it's all just going to work out. It's okay. Like that doesn't
Yeah.
actually have an outcome. There's not a specific thing there. Okay.
Yeah.
One of the ways that I've heard it put before is when you think about an organization, like the data across the entire company,
Yeah.
the sales data, if it's cluttered, it's unclear, it's out of date, it's costing the company something. And it
Yep.
feels like that's the same thing when it comes to their people data, their HR data. As you said, like rediscovery is an example. We don't know what talent's already in our database. We're going out there and trying to source for it when we could have just tapped into the people who were already there, but we didn't
Yeah.
know they were there because we didn't have clear data or weren't actually looking in the right place. And so on down the path, right? Talent management opportunities, mobility inside the business,
Yeah.
what skills do we already have, those sort of untapped opportunities just because we don't have clarity yet, and that's costing us something, just like it would if we had unclear sales data or something else in the business elsewhere.
Yeah, you think about just the value to an individual employee, right? If you
Mhm.
have an individual employee that you can work with on, hey, here's some career opportunities that might align to your skill set. From these opportunities, here we can use AI to recommend skills and recommend learning for them to gain those skills. I mean, as an employee, that would deliver a lot of value because you can see the ways in which your career can, the trajectory can go through. And sometimes you just don't know where to start. You need somebody, and everyone is different. And so it's hard to rely on somebody in your organization to be able to say, hey, Ben, these are the things you need to do. But AI can help you with that. Hey, Ben, if you want to be here, I would recommend these learning courses to acquire these skills and maybe these projects. And that's really where, from a value perspective, that can be really powerful for an employee.
Yes. Excellent. I'm glad you brought that lens in. We're talking about like the talent leaders, the people listening here, but ultimately we're serving those candidates, those employees, and if we're making it easier for them, that's where part of this value comes from as well. Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have my magic wand here. Hold on. A magic wand here handy just for you.
All right.
So I wave a magic wand and you are in charge of talent acquisition for a company right now. What AI are you thinking about? Which one are you like, that's kind of sketchy or kind of hypey? I'm not sure about that one. Which one are you like, first thing, this is low hanging fruit. I'm going here. Talk about that.
Yeah, so if I had the magic wand and I wanted an organization to see success, I would start with AI that's going to essentially augment, accelerate talent discovery, which is, i.e., weed through the top of the funnel. So tools there would be AI powered search and match. So being able, all of the searching and the matching, when you post a job, being able to automatically match the top 50 candidates to that job as part of that rediscovery, and then being able to find other candidates that you may want to speak with. So definitely some of the search and match. being able to source better. So AI has a lot of powerful tools for sourcing where you can automate the pulling of candidates from job boards or LinkedIn or whatever those talent pools, maybe they're internal talent pools. But those sourcing assistants are great in first of all, widening the funnel before you narrow the funnel. And they can do that effortlessly. And then also screening automation. So not that, the more in-depth interview, but being able to quickly screen individuals. And those could be mandatory questions around, can you lift 50 pounds? Can you drive a semi-truck? Whatever those mandatory questions are. But it can also be there to start to understand, hey, these are the candidates that might be the best for the role. And so you think about being able to, a candidate applies, and within 5 minutes later, you've also sent them 6 or 7 screening questions to vet them out. To me, those are high ROI, but they're also low risk. You're not going to get into a lot of compliance issues there. You're going to definitely save the recruitment teams hours and hours of work. And you could definitely also be reducing some of your spend. If you can tap into your internal database and your internal talent pools, and you're not having to go out and source and hire a bunch of other, it's going to reduce spend. So that's, if I told a company, where do you want to start? Where do you want to look at first? It would definitely be in that top of funnel search batch sourcing agents screening automation.
Okay. You said high ROI and low risk. And I like that combination here because everybody assumes that AI hiring, oh, that's high risk immediately. That's scary. And you're like, maybe if I'm just picking somebody, sure. But if we're using it for some of these other sorts of use cases like you're talking about, it's not high risk and it allows us to get value right out of it. And I'll back that up with some of you may hear that and think, yeah, but what about the candidate side? We just talked about those and the end users. In the research we've done on AI and hiring, candidates tell us that they are most comfortable with employers using AI to match them to jobs that are fit for their skills. So they're actually okay with that use case because they perceive the value outweighs any potential risk of AI being used in that process. So candidates are even on board with some of those pieces around the matching component that you talked about, which to me is exciting. And then the other piece of data, you talked about it already, but the tapped on it where companies are struggling to sift through all the candidates. That came out as the number one priority for employers this year. It wasn't employer branding. It wasn't some other stuff. It was how do we sift down, pick the right person, the absolute best candidate for the job, and any tools that help to get to that decision, to help speed that up, to make that more clear, to give them more confidence. That's a win on all fronts. So it's really good data points there to back up some of those key things you were sharing. And I'll have to keep the magic wand handy for next time, just in case I need that one again. So if someone wants to hear more about Daxtra, the good work that you and the team are doing there, talk about how they can connect.
Yeah. So first of all, you can go out to Daxtra.com. We have recently released a new talent flow platform, and it's there to help the recruiting and candidate experience. It's got capabilities like candidate discovery, matching, engagement. It reduces a lot of the manual effort. And so we're really excited to bring this to market. It takes a lot of the legacy Daxtra technologies and it powers them through agentic AI. But yeah, if you want to learn more, definitely come out to .com and check us out. And we'd love to have a conversation. If you have just questions on AI in general, or you'd like to see what we're doing with Talent Flow, that would be great.
Excellent. I'll make sure and get that in the comments here so people can reach right out, connect, see what Daxtra's up to there. Thank you again for joining us, for being our designated technology guy for the day. Like it or not, you are our guest today that does not have the HR and talent background, which is great because we need to be hearing from people who are building the tools or thinking about the tools in a different perspective. So thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate your time.
To everybody else out there, stay tuned for more good stuff coming right up. All right. Man, that was, if you couldn't tell, like nerdy kid in a candy store moment for me, getting to talk to a real technology leader who's building the stuff, talking about it, George. So I had fun. And again, I think I shocked him when I had an actual magic wand within reach during the session. We're talking, I was going to say, if you were the leader, it's like, it's way more fun to say, if I had a magic wand, I made you the leader of a company, what would you do? So I've got to keep that handy from now on, just in case I need
the
that.
secret is out, Ben. You can never not say you don't have a magic wand to do something. You have the HR wand.
Just in case I need to take care of a big problem. I saw you there in the chat, Don. I saw Jane on the team over there at Daxtra as well. Thank you all for supporting today and for hanging out with us and for great conversation about this. I loved again, Don got into the technical side of that around, and even in the chat, talking to Tamisha and some of the others around how do we protect PII? How do we make sure we're protecting the information of our people when we're using these tools? How do we make sure we're approaching this the right way? And I love the beginning where he's like, AI might not be the answer. Like, yes, please preach on that some more, that AI is not the answer to everything. And we need to decide what the problem is, and then decide, is AI one of the solutions potentially? It's not a solution in search for a problem. Anyway, sorry.
You say AI doesn't have everything, and all I can think of is AI NAIL stands for all inclusive. It's not. It's not all inclusive when it comes to AI. And that's the key.
Can't do all the things in spite of what we think or what we hear from some of the headlines. So great conversations. Maybe I need to figure out. George, I told you I've been looking for a good prompt when I'm speaking, and maybe the magic wand is the perfect one for that. I don't know. I'll have to decide on that one. I mean, I hand out some magic wands when I speak and say, "Hey, listen, take this back to you at work." Who knows? We'll see. All right.
Hey, Ben, I know he has some issues with comments as well. I don't know if you want to address that.
Yes. So
real quick, so they know that we're actually live. We actually are seeing it. Yes. We do want to address some of those issues.
Yes. So anyone who is on StreamYard right now listening in on that platform, apologies for the weird comment issues where it's getting attributed to you or someone else, or it's just popping up with a random name. We've let technical support know so they can try to peek in there and check that one out. I don't know if they will during the stream or not, but just know that we appreciate you all for at least being here, doing your best to comment. If you jumped on the other platforms, it doesn't seem like it's causing problems on LinkedIn or on the YouTube streams. But again, hang out where you want to hang out, listen in, and chime in. And if it gets attributed to somebody else, it doesn't bother us. We're just glad that you're here with us. So, all right, let's jump into our next conversation with Nicole. I'm so excited to hear from her. Again, she and I, do I have to warn everybody? Do we need like a trigger warning? We're going into like sci-fi land at part of this conversation. And Nicole is probably smiling really big right now as she hears me say that. But we're talking along. She's like, we're going to just pause this whole real world thing and go off to sci-fi land for a minute. And so we go there and back a few times in this. I didn't get any frequent flyer miles, but we'll have some fun either way. So let's jump in here. Let's talk to her about some of her thinking around this as someone who is a professional question asker in the field of HR and people. Let's jump in. Welcome to the session here today. I know that you're having a lot of fun learning about AI, the applications in our space, and some of the opportunities that exist, maybe some of the risks and challenges too. And I'm excited to be here with one of my good friends, Nicole Eisdorfer. We're going to dive into some of the things that she's thinking, some of the things that she's writing about this topic, as someone that I respect highly for her deep thinking, her critical thinking, and her big questions that she asks. So I'm going to take the time to ask her some questions today. Nicole, welcome.
Hi, thanks, Ben. I really, really appreciate the opportunity to be here. I am so excited to read this book. So I'm like ready.
We're going to have a blast. Yeah. Before we get to some of the good stuff, would you take a minute and tell the audience more about who you are and what you do, please?
Yeah. So my name is Nicole, and I started my own business in July. It's called Truer Words. There's a thing back there. And it's based entirely on the premise that your systems and processes are how you keep your promises, which is my little catchy way of saying, hey, let's actually look at what we're doing in our systems and make sure they aren't turning us into liars.
Ooh, goodness. We could spend the whole time on that. You and I love to chase down a rabbit trail. I love the approach there. I love the true words never spoken. I love the phraseology behind that, all the things that you're doing. So again, I read what you write. I follow you on Substack. You write great things. We'll make sure and drop a link here in the chat so everyone can go and find you and connect there, because if they love you, like I figure they will after this conversation, they'll be able to get more Nicole whenever they want it. So I asked you specifically to come today, handpicked. There you go, because I appreciate your perspective on all things HR, but especially around AI. You really have pushed the boundaries of what's possible. You've challenged us to think differently about it. You had a great session at summer school this year where you talked about some of the thinking behind that. And I just want to start us off with a broad sort of question. I'd love to hear, true or false, right now is the best time to be in HR. What do you think?
True with a giant asterisk.
Okay, bring it.
So we are at this pivotal moment where all of the things that are going around are the people things. We've spent the last 2 to 3 decades earning our seat at the table and learning to speak finance, God help us all. And all of the strategy pieces, they were like, okay, if you want to be part of the strategy, you have to learn these things. And we were like, okay. And we took out our notebook and we studied. We were like, all right, we can speak corporate robot. But the whole time, we also kept speaking people. And so now we're at this time where we get to question what work even is anymore. This technology could completely redefine the way we do things. And so my asterisk is we've in earning our seat at the table, we've also kind of been the new person. And so we've sat and we've listened and we've nodded our heads and we've been the mouthpiece for the rest of the C-suite. We've been the policy people and the rule keepers and the how do we make this fly. And now we have to be the people who push back and say, wait a second, AI is a computer. You cannot, the only thing sillier than telling a person one thing and expecting them to do something else is telling a computer one thing and expecting it to do something else. AI is going to do what the data you feed it teaches it to do. So we get to be really honest now and say, okay, what are our systems supposed to be doing? Not what fancy words did we throw at it, but what is the truth? And so we're going to have to build some different muscles, and we're going to have to get really brave and really courageous.
I appreciate that perspective, and I would tend to agree with that. One of the things that I talked about in a session recently is that AI is a programming tool, right? It's programmed to see variables and numbers and just facts. So much of life is messy, not all clearly defined. We know that better than anybody working this field. But the other part is the people in your organization are obstacles to be overcome to an AI algorithm. There are challenges to be addressed. There are issues to be solved. And I don't know about any of you out there, but I didn't get into this field because I want to solve people. People are pretty tough to fix. And so that's why we spend so much time trying to hire well, because we don't want to try to fix them after it's almost impossible. And so that's one of the things that it came to mind as you're sharing that is, yeah, it's a very different sort of approach. And you said it's silly, right? It's disastrous. We can throw all these words at it, but it's just ridiculous to assume any of those sorts of things.
Yeah. And I mean, when we think about our systems, there are a lot of things that we say we want to prioritize, and then we build our systems. And in HR, we are the shoestring and bubblegum function of the org. We get the smallest budgets. We're always standing with our hand held out. Please, sir, may I have another? And we are constantly investing in workarounds and just trying to get at what we need in the most efficient way possible with the fewest resources possible. And our work is messy. A lot of it's invisible, and everybody loves metrics, but our metrics are really, really long-term, and they have a lot of confounding factors. I don't know how many of you remember high school science, but when you are studying different things, you want to try to minimize your confounding variables, the other things that are mattering. So for example, if you're looking at how kids stack blocks, if you measure you, Ben, how you stack blocks, and then you measured me, how I stacked blocks, but you, Ben, were 5 years older than me, then your data has confounding variables. It has other things like how you were raised, who your parents were, do you have more access to blocks, right? You want to minimize those things in an experiment. And so HR data has a bazillion confounding factors. And so we don't have great answers for what's the value of your program.
I want to go down a whole rabbit trail of measurement and everything else. Every time you and I get together,
HR squirrels.
I know the good and the bad of that is I want to go down all these paths. I want to try to stick to the question, because I had a big question that I want to ask you that I honestly have no clue what you're going to say. So for the audience's sake out there, I trust Nicole greatly. That's why I'm asking her this big question. So I want to hear from you, because we're here not just to tell people all these things, but also to inspire them, to encourage them to be asking more questions themselves. It is my hope that hearing you talk with us today is going to have that light bulb go off for someone, and they're going to think, I've never stopped to think about it that way. I've got to ask better questions, or I've got to think differently, or I've got to go address this leader because they're talking about it the wrong way. I want them to walk out here with that. So the question I'd love to throw at you here is, what are some of the questions about AI that our friends out there in HR should be asking, but they're not?
Okay, let's start with what they are. The most common questions are how do we use this to be more efficient, right? That's how do we do what we're doing today faster? And then you have some people who are starting to push and say, okay, well, wait a second. Like how does this whole problem work? How does the whole process and system work? What gets encoded that we can't see? What's going on behind the scenes? Where are their biases? And those are important questions. I want to go hang out in sci-fi world for a minute. What if the way we do things today isn't correct in the first place? We are attached to systems that were built in a completely different society. And so instead of saying, how do we hire faster? Let's ask questions like, how do we know we're hiring the right people and that we have hired the right people? How do we know who we haven't overlooked? And what can this technology unlock for us? I mentioned earlier the workarounds, right? So we have spent a bazillion years figuring out how to best measure proxies of what we wanted. We wanted people who were curious, who exhibited learning agility, who could just jump in and solve problems. Well, that's hard to measure. Mm-hmm. We don't have a good way to do it. And so we looked at things like education and experience, like what did they do in the past? And can we guess what they can do in the future based on that? What if this technology, instead of just pulling from resumes and saying, oh yeah, Ben went to this school and this thing, and so he's probably good at it. What if the technology could use the way you use it, right? So the metadata, this is my, if I were Sam Altman pitch. If I were Sam Altman, the thing I would be selling to companies would not just be access to OpenAI. It would be the metadata, not what did Ben search for, but what does the way Ben interacted with the technology tell me about the way Ben thinks? What does it tell me about the way Ben solves problems? What does it tell me about the way he pushes back on inaccurate data? There is so much about what you know that AI can tell you back, and we're not even scratching the surface of it.
Okay, so my brain's. I was in sci-fi world with you for a second there. I was making my track back to real world here with everybody else.
Sci-fi world.
Yes, I mean I'm a sci-fi fan, so there is that. So you were talking about how we are asking some of the wrong kinds of questions initially, right? It sounds like we're just asking about efficiency, and I don't know about anybody out there who's like, I can't wait to get into this field of people and talent and HR because I just want to be super, super efficient and blow everyone away with my levels of efficiency.
Yeah.
Probably not. They're thinking about some of the bias, the risk. Like that's not a bad thing to think about. But when you stop there, you're missing some of the opportunity to go deeper into what can this tell us about work? What does this tell us? Yeah. You mentioned earlier about we are at a point where we're going to have to redefine what work looks like. We've been doing something for a long time that may actually be completely useless, completely invaluable, not valuable at all. And AI can do it faster and better than we can. And so is that still work? Is it a different part of work? Is it a part that's no longer human work? We have to be thinking about those sorts of things, I think, because right now the opportunity is there in a way that it hasn't really been as greatly in the past.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, if you think of what every headline that's out there right now, one of the things that underlies all of them is trust. So employees don't trust leaders, but also leaders don't trust employees. No one trusts our data. I mean, what if, we're going back to sci-fi world for a moment. What if, and this is completely riffed off the top of my head.
Frequent flyer miles for this, by the way. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, you'll have to talk to Delta about that. I'm not in charge of that. So if you think through the holy grail of HR data, the thing that we've all talked about besides organizational network analysis, which is so far into sci-fi world that, I mean, I don't even think that's ever going to happen, but who knows? But it's data about KSAs that you can trust, knowledge, skills, and abilities, right? We use a lot of proxies for those things. So what if instead of talent acquisition being one silo and talent management being one silo and talent development being one silo, what if you yourself owned your own data? And so when you went to go work for Lighthouse Research and Advisory, all of the things you did, the projects you did, the context of those projects were captured in this thing. And so now you have a person who, okay, we're going to pick on one of my favorite targets, star interviews. I hate star interviews. And I hate star interviews because people get through the S, the T, and the A, great. And then they get to the R. And if you have sat in the middle or lower portions of a company and you haven't sat up in strategy world, a lot of times you don't have access to the metrics of the impact of your work. If you are someone who is collaborative, who is a team player, chances are you didn't even pay attention to what those metrics were. You just quietly solved problems, went about your way, and just tried to make work a pleasant place to be. And that has value, but it's not captured in those things. So what if it was? What if performance management could say, oh, Ben worked on this project and he got all of these done. He identified contingencies, he identified the dependencies, he had a great timeline, all of these things happened. And then the bottleneck happened up here, 3 levels higher. Well, if we're looking at a holistic system, now it can say, oh, hey, you know what? Joe's project bottleneck there too. And so did Nicole's. And so did Jill's. And wow, so did George's. Something's going on here. And then it can have the context of the organization and say, well, okay, this leader is a problem. Or it could say, all 5 of these projects had in common that they were related to this initiative. And then that initiative got deprioritized because of an acquisition or something that's happening way high up. We don't get that information immediately. It's private. So it's just a sort of mind-blowing possibility of what's possible. And we're sitting here being like, how can I make my email faster? Now.
I was looking at a piece of data this morning. A friend of mine posted about how there are more job applicants for jobs in recent history because people are looking for jobs, but the time to fill numbers have stayed pretty steady. And it's like, we're sitting on all of these candidates, more interesting candidates than before even, and companies are just kind of sitting on it, waiting to see, or holding their breath, or whatever else. As you were saying, sometimes that's, we're waiting on funding for this project, we're hiring in advance because it's going to start next quarter, or we're just not sure yet what's going to happen. We'll go ahead and collect them and then we'll wait and see. And so all those sorts of things outside of that, and that recruiter's like, why these jobs aren't closing? My performance may not look good, but they're doing all the right things. They're being attentive. They're solving problems, but the recs aren't closing because of all these things outside of their control. So
it would be able to give that context of performance within scope, which is huge. And then there's also this thought, you mentioned all these people who are applying. Well, how often are our job descriptions filled with complete nonsense? And how often are they the truth?
Surely not. Surely not.
Right? But I mean, have you ever applied for a role and you went to interview and they're talking and the role you applied for had all of this strategic language in it and these are what you're going to do. And then you get into the interview and the actual role is a lot of maintenance work and you're just cleaning up spreadsheets and there's very, very little strategy. Going back to the questions we should be asking, how do we even know we're attracting the right people for our job? And if we had this magical sci-fi moment of our skills passport where we could just take our skills with us and our interests with us, and it's this complete profile, and then it could match us to the job that matches us. I mean, for crying out loud, I can build all day, every day. I am great at building. I love to build. You put me in a maintenance role and I am miserable. I will find a way to automate everything I can and then hire someone else to do the job and go move on and do something else every single time.
I think the Lego around you indicates to anyone here, if they were unsure about your clarity there, you are truly, literally a builder and figuratively a builder when it comes to things in place.
Yeah. So confession time, I don't build the Legos.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. My husband builds them. So he finds them very zen and very relaxing, and I think they're cheaper than drugs. So I'm like, okay. So I'm killing you, Ben. I know.
There we go.
But we are running out of display space, and so I was like, okay, you can build all the Legos, but they have to be things that I care about. So they're all things that I like.
Okay.
But they're not. I built. Let's see. I built the friend's apartment over there, and the little like wicked one. And I built the little books that are probably hiding behind me somewhere.
Okay.
That's it. That's all I've done.
Otherwise, you just arrange them. There we go.
I just arranged them. I built the shelves.
There we go. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to ask you about, I mentioned your Substack earlier, and again, I'll drop that link in the chat. One of the things that you had mentioned before that ties in with some of the other things you've already covered today, so it's not necessarily fully new ground, but I think it's a great call out here. You talked about how the next generation of AI tools won't fix our old habits, it will magnify those habits. Talk about that just for a minute. And I think, again, it ties in with everything else you shared, because it's a reminder that AI is not this magic pill, this magic solution to things. It's just going to repeat things. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I mentioned earlier, we in HR are not the ones with the world's most trustworthy data. I mean, you look at marketing and they have all of these magic tools where they can predict you're pregnant before. It's incredible. I mean, did you hear that story about Target where the dad found out about his teenage daughter's pregnancy?
I did not.
Through the mailers. Oh yeah, no, they know everything about you. And then you contrast it with HR, who seems, I've had trouble pulling gender statistics for employee surveys. So like, who knows? So when you're thinking through what it looks like to have trustworthy data, and when you're thinking through like what our habits are. So again, you're feeding this machine everything we've ever done. So if we say we value innovation and creativity, but we have hired 15 people in the same function from the same school and the same background, and they're the people that our AI is going to be trained to look for are more of those exact same people. We can't say like, oh, bring in a diversity of opinions, but these are the people who succeeded. Train on the people who succeeded and expect anything different.
Going to repeat those things on and on.
And much faster than we do.
Yes. It will get that candidate right to your doorstep faster than you would have, even if it's the wrong one. It's just going to do it more quickly. That's the thing that.
Well, and it's going to look unbiased, right? It's going to look fair.
Yes. It's. Well, I was going to say the thing that's my mind goes to when I hear that example. Like there's so many examples of this where we've seen it actually happen. This isn't a hypothetical. This has actually been proven to happen in all of these different areas. And then I go into the other side of it where I was telling someone yesterday, like AI just people rely on it for things they shouldn't be, frankly. And there's a story in the news about someone who got a disease that we thought we eradicated 100 years ago because they were following the advice of the AI bot they were asking questions of. Yep. And those sorts of things just indicate that we have to be the smart one. We have to be in charge. We have to be asking these questions, right? And not assuming how fast are we hiring, but are we even asking for the right people to hire? And the other sort of background questions you were saying, we've got to back up into that. And frankly, that's hard. It's not easy to ask questions. That's why we just go down a path. But
we didn't, like you said before, we didn't come into this work to be like the evil overlords of Mount Doom.
I did.
Right?
I'm just kidding.
Well, you might have. The rest of us, I mean,
most of us probably
didn't. Yeah, right. So I think something that's really hard about this work, and one of the reasons I said it's a super challenge, we have to be really honest about the truth of our systems. But some of those systems have caused harm. And so now we're in this cognitive dissonance moment of, I'm not a bad person, but some of the systems I've worked with have done bad things. And so we're going to have a real look in the mirror moment and say, what is the truth of this? And what do we want to go forward? What do we want to happen at scale and with speed? And if we don't do that work, that's when it becomes really depressing.
Yeah. Yes. Because you'll end up being one of those in the headlines where your job gets automated. If you're just doing the same thing as everybody else, you're going to be replaced. It will. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't want to threaten anyone. I don't want to scare anybody, but at the same time, like, you don't step out in the street when there are cars coming. You know that by now. And this is probably a terrible metaphor, but it's essentially, hey, we see it coming, and you're either going to just continue on and do whatever you're going to do, or you're going to make a conscious choice to think differently, to act differently, to ask bigger questions, and try to find a way to use your humanness, frankly.
Yeah.
Use that curiosity. That's your edge. Those sorts of things. That's what when I think about curiosity, the first person I think of, right? Because you're my big question asker. So I love that part. Okay, so I want to ask you one more question before we wrap this up. And for the audience out there listening, we've covered some interesting ground, both in sci-fi world and in real world. We've covered some of the problems and challenges they have that they have to address if they want to make any headway. What is your best piece of advice for an HR pro? You said it's the best time with an asterisk, right? Yes, but what is your best piece of advice for someone that's working in HR today in the age of AI?
I would say start examining your habits. When we talked on your podcast a while back, one of the things that you would ask me was like the movie scene and I was like the girl in the red dress in the Matrix, that scene, that we need to be able to see the system we're working in. So we need that ability to step back and say, okay, yes, this is the way we've always done it. And what about it is important? What do each of these things do? How do each of those things match our values? And what do we want to carry forward? And what do we want to change? This is our chance to change it. So just get really, really intentional with poking holes in those systems. Like consider yourself a red team of one.
Red team of one. I like that.
Red team of one. I'm stealing things from IT all over the place.
Apparently so. We'll have our
well, if you followed Nomad, you made friends and then you learned all the IT words.
Yes, there you go. There you go. Okay, so again, I've already mentioned a couple of times. I'll drop the Truer Words Substack link here in the chat so people can connect there, can follow you, can read your other thoughts and big ideas around this as you continue to share and push on some of these things we talked about today and some other broader concepts as well. Thank you again so much for joining, for sharing. I'll make sure you get your LinkedIn in here as well so they can connect with you there. Does that sound good?
Thanks, Ben. I really appreciate it. This was super fun.
Yeah, hey, I always love a chance to chat with you. I always walk away with bigger ideas and a bigger perspective on things. That's what I really was hoping to get out of this. So I know the audience is probably out there again. They're back with us from sci-fi land and they're ready to put some things into practice. So thank you again to everybody else out there. Stay tuned for more good stuff coming right up. Man, oh man, Nicole is super sharp. I just enjoy hearing from her. She gives me big thinking, and we had a lot of good thumbs up there from the audience as well. So thank you, my friend, for joining us, for being willing to share, for taking me to Sci-Fi Land and back. Most people want to go to Disney World. I want to go to Sci-Fi Land because there's some fun stuff there. So I've been to Magic Land with the Magic Wand today and Sci-Fi Land. What's left, George? Maybe Human Land? That's where we're going to go next.
Human Land or Data Land? I don't know. But could be fun for you.
Could be fun for me. Everybody else might need a break from it once in a while. So I'm going to transition here. We are going to talk about being human right now. And so I actually put the finding humanity, finding purpose in the age of AI as the sort of placeholder for this session on the agenda, because I wanted a chance to talk to you in this bigger context. You started out today saying and admitting like you're not the expert on AI. Great. Because you're an expert on humans through your work in the nonprofit space, through your interactions with leaders over the last few years, through the companies that you're working with right now, either as a coach or doing leadership development training for them. Those things that you do, you get a chance to influence support at that level. So I wanted the chance to ask you some questions around this, things that we should be thinking about on the human side, because so many of the comments, I don't know if you noticed, but some of the comments, especially during Nicole's session, were saying, wow, this is all cool. Humans are hard. Wow, this is all great. We have to change people. Wow, this is hard. We have to communicate this. And so we can't get away from the human part. In spite of it being a digital and a technology change, humans are the ones in the middle of all this change. So I'm just going to start off for you in this sort of conversation around AI swirling around so many things. How do you think leaders can ensure that the human connection remains at the center of work?
Yeah, I'll go back to something that Nicole said, and even Don in the conversations. When I think about the human aspect and aligning AI with it, I will be remiss, Ben. You brought out your magic wand, and so I'm gonna have to bring out one of my special friends. Is that okay that I do that? When I think about AI and humans, when I first bought this pair of shoes, if you remember, Ben, I bought a pair of shoes, some white shoes. I needed some all white shoes, and when I first bought these shoes, I didn't realize what I actually bought. And so in my shoes today, I look at this as we as humans, if this shoe represented us as human beings and we're wanting to adapt with AI, for me, and I'll share just a brief about how if I was in retail still, I had 18 retail stores that I was part of. And one of the things that I would always try to do is try to use AI to remove repetitive things, right? I would try to use technology then to say, hey, how can we do something to limit the repetitiveness in these tasks? So leaders, our managers, our directors, our district managers can really reinvest their time in a meaningful conversation. And so for me, that's where I would start. And I would be able to adapt those things. What the secret of the shoe is for everybody that's wondering why a white pair of shoes in AI, HI means so much to me is because it's not a normal shoe bin. It actually can rip off, right? And so Nike sent me this pair of shoes, and each section of the shoe I can take off and put on a new section, right? I can adapt. When I think about AI and I think about human intelligence, the beauty of it is that AI only adapts to the person who's using it. And I think for us, we have to, as humans, as leaders, we have to set intentional human first rituals or meaningfuls, whether that's one-on-ones, whether that's storytelling, whether that's recognition circles, to really anchor, to be the anchor of connection beyond, what digital and technology can do. So for me, when I think about your question, how can leaders really ensure human connection? I say use AI to remove repetitives. And how can I then take that time that I'm saving on the repetitive task to really reinvest and really, as I always say, inspect what I expect and put my time to my people and with my people and adapt. And so I'm always about adapting. Great leaders adapt.
Flexibility too, we heard earlier as a key thing. So I want to take that and I want to take it one step farther. So there was actually a comment from Tiffany that came in earlier, and it's a long comment. You don't have to read the whole thing, and it's because covering the whole thing. But the key thing is here, she's talking about how younger applicants, they may not want to work in person. They prefer to just digital stuff over human interaction. And I don't know if that's the case, that's what they're used to, they're comfortable with, but we're going to have to force them out of that. If that's truly is a change in how people are going to interact, I can't imagine being a future where the human connection and contact isn't part of that. How does a leader help nurture and support and mentor someone who is way more comfortable on a screen, on a device, when they're going to have to be connecting with people in person in order to accelerate their career, in order to meet their goals, in order to serve customers or clients potentially in their role? How does a leader mentor someone into that kind of thing? Because that seems like almost like in the past, it seems weird to say this, but like talking to people, interacting with people is a skill. Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, for me, anytime I hear the word mentor, I think of what my father used to teach me is that he was my first mentor that I actually trust. Like I was willing to allow him to guide me through those things. And he says, and I was like, what is mentoring? What's the difference between a mentor and a coach? And he said, mentoring is simply what it is. Break down the word, me touring. I'm taking you on a journey that I've gone through or I've avoided, and I'm going to tour you through this thing, and you're guiding them through that. And part of that guide for me to be able to let him mentor me, tour me, and guide me through that is that the first step was how did he get that trust from me? The trust was not his title that made me say, oh, he has this huge title or he has this paper with a seal of approval, right? It was the trust of him being authentic. Mm-hmm. And I think the foundation of anything that starts with mentoring, coaching, or just leading people in general, Ben, I think the fundamental foundation has to be based on trust. How did he gain that trust? Because it's trust over titles every day of the week, right? Mm-hmm. Like your title is great for you, but that's not who you are. It's like George. My mom named me George Rogers, not the title Chief Strategy Officer or Chief Culture Officer or owner, whatever the titles I've had in the past of my life, right? It's the trust over title, number one. And then as you take that title away from it, you realize that people just want authentic people. Tim, my father, was Tim. It was never his title. It was never what his next title was. It was just Tim McNamee, right? And so he gained that trust. And from the trust, what I found out, Ben, is that he actually was hearing me. Leadership in the workplace. Employees don't want to be fixed. They want to be heard. And so when you're mentoring somebody, stop trying to fix their problems and hear what they're actually saying and guide them through that. Is how I would say those are two steps: trust over title, and then hear them versus trying to fix them.
I love that. And hopefully, Tiffany, that gives you some idea. Some of the comments there in the chat from Peter and from Joseph. As you were saying that, I saw the comment from Joseph saying some of the similar sorts of things, like people want to be themselves.
Yeah.
Right. And you're saying you've got to see that person. You've got to see who they are, not just the title, the job they're doing, the task that they've been given, but who that person really is. And that's the thing that is both great and difficult about HR, because we have to compartmentalize everything. We have to know everybody's pay, the jobs they do, when they were hired, seniority, like all these little nuances and details. Do they have insurance or not? Like the deductions, we have to know these details about people. And at the same time, we have to see them for, hey, listen, I know George has a family, and I know that he's got a dog that runs the house. And I know that, like, I know these things about George and who he is, right? I know this great love for sneakers that not a single person in the audience was probably surprised by. I know those things about who you are, and none of those have a title on them. But that's what builds trust, is knowing those things. And Peter Cersei also said, hey, listen, what are they getting out of that tech interaction that they're not getting in the human interaction? And that's why they refer it. Like, maybe they don't get judged in that. And so how do we start getting them ready for that? Because life is going to have some kind of judgment, but can we start easing them into it so they're ready for it? So great piece there. I got one more question for you, George.
Gotcha.
And I think let's wrap this up with one of your favorite words, which is culture. How should our friends out there listening right now, these HR leaders, how should they rethink? And if so, how should they be rethinking culture building in an AI enabled workplace? Is it different? Should it be different? And if so, what should they be doing about it? It's like 7 questions at once. Sorry.
Yes. Is that a good answer? Yeah. I say this, Ben, like, AI changes how work gets done. Culture is why people show up. And so for us as HR leaders, professionals, we have to reframe what culture building looks like, to really include, for me, how do I include the digital, the AI, and the human touch points? Because for me, the root of it, again, is rewinding. I want to make sure that I am authentically who I am, right? So what does that look like? I want to be empathetic. I want to be purpose-driven. I want to be able to recognize my employees and my team members for what they do. So recognition has to remain the foundation. Even as AI and other technologies accelerate the process, I think we have to still say, yes, AI is there, but when it comes to culture, that's why people are showing up. They are showing up because of how not AI made them feel. AI is not a feeling, right? AI is not going to get you there. So when you think about my root of what culture is, I always say culture is how most, not all, but how most employees feel, believe, and behave. Not all the time, but just most of the time. And so AI is not going to give me a feeling, although if it doesn't give me the right answer, it may frustrate me, or if it's not listening to what tone I want to do, it can give me that type of feeling. But from the authentic standpoint, how Ben makes me feel determines what I believe about this company, and what I believe about this company is going to dictate how I behave. And so you have to go back to the root. AI can help you, support you through the work, but culture is going to sustain you and help retain those employees that you may have.
Goodness. I love it. I love it so much. I agree with you completely. Again, AI is going to change some of the work for sure. Some things are going to be very different in the future, just like flashback 20 years, right? Things were different then. 10 years ago, they're different, and they're going to continue to change. We talked about that earlier about things are going to change, and the change happens to you, or do you play a part in influencing whatever that change is? And I love your point there on the culture being the thing that's going to make people want to come to work, want to show up, want to perform, want to excel, because we have a culture around us that embraces and supports those people, makes them feel like they actually matter in this world. It's weird, George, to say that just treating someone like a human and appreciating them at that level, it's going to be a differentiator for the companies that are succeeding long term. It's not the ones that are using AI tools, because all of them will eventually be using some form of AI in all these different processes and practices and systems and workflows. But the difference is going to be your people and the culture and how they feel when they show up.
Yep. I agree, my friend. I agree.
Okay.
So true.
Okay.
So I got to do this before you cut me off, because Nicole showed all her cool Legos. So I wish I would have turned my desk around. So I'm going to show all the people, my cool cool shoe wall. I don't build all these, but I do place them on the wall. So Nicole has Legos, George has shoes.
Oh my goodness, love it. Okay, all right, we're going to jump into our last conversation here, panel conversation with Sandra and Lane. We're going to talk about the real impact of AI on our work, how to succeed as an HR practitioner, again, some of you are in learning and talent, some of you are in recruiting, some of you are in HR specific. Regardless of the role you're in, we're going to cover a lot of different examples in this session. These two are so much fun. And George, I can't wait for you to see the shirt that Lane's wearing. It is a hoot. So let's get into this and let's learn. And I hope you've enjoyed the conversations today at the event, really picked up some good ideas for AI, what it means for you, what it means for our future as a profession, and some of the opportunities we have to use it responsibly, carefully, but also intelligently to make our work better, to make it more meaningful. And I'm excited to wrap us up today with this incredible panel, two people I highly respect. I have Lane McFarland here with me, as well as Sandra Laughlin. We're going to be diving into some questions I have for them specifically. I handpicked these panelists because I appreciate their perspectives on this and would love to hear from them about some of the ways that we can be thinking about the value that AI presents to us and the opportunities there, not just for us individually or for us as a function, but for the business as well. So excited both of you are here. We're going to dive into some good stuff. Before we jump into that, Sandra, we'll start with you. A quick intro, who you are, and what you do for the audience, please.
Great to be here, and thanks so much for having me, Ben, and fun to be with you, Lane, as well. Sandra Laughlin, I am the Chief Learning Scientist at a company called EPAM Systems. We are a large, 60,000 person professional services organization that builds high-end software, digital, and data products. And I think I'm a lot less interesting than the company, because what's very interesting about us is that we've been leveraging AI in HR for literal decades. And so we have lots of different use cases, lots of perspective to share. And I'm excited to talk about that with you guys today.
Tremendous. Lane, what's your story?
So happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Ben. Nice to talk to you, Sandra. I am Lane McFarland. I'm the Vice President of People Operations at Flashpoint, which is a global threat data and intelligence company. I lead the end-to-end HR function for around 350 team members across 8 countries. So over the last 15 plus years, I've been transforming complex organizations. I had a strong focus on innovation, digital operations, and then over the last 3 to 4 years around automation and AI transformation.
And most importantly, tell the audience about your shirt.
So my children dress me every day. So this is one of many in my repertoire of fun shirts. I think last time I did one of these talks, I was wearing bacon and eggs, or maybe it was a hot dog shirt, but
okay. So it's the Dino Chicken Nuggets for anyone that's trying to figure out and pick out exactly what's on that. So my kids are not purveyors of, they're consumers of Dino Chicken Nuggets. And so I immediately recognize that. So any parent probably would too. So excited that you're both here. Looking forward to getting into this. And you both have some good things to share. I already know it. So Lane, I'm going to start with you on this one. I'm always reading the headlines, trying to see what's out there happening. And there was an AI related headline that said the end of HR as we know it. That was the actual title on that. I'd love to hear from you. What's your reaction to a title like that when it comes to the work we do every day?
good. I mean, honestly, everything changes. There is never a time in any field or any industry where the function doesn't or shouldn't change for the better. So the world of the rubber stamp on the paper, the word police, as I hear people negatively call HR, that's gone. That's been gone for years. 20 years ago, Google came out and said it's now people ops. And okay, well, fast forward 10 years, now it's people experience, and now it's people. So the HR function is always changing. So if AI is a tool for us to elevate our skills and how we show up for a business, why not make the change?
Sandra, any thoughts?
So, okay, I'm going to say as a company that has AI everywhere and all the things that we do, we still have HR, and HR is not it's not the same as it is in other organizations. We are structured differently. We are staffed in some ways differently. Our processes are different. We think differently about our work. So I think Lane is right. I think there is a new evolution. It's an evolution. It's not like it's a complete, it's an evolving space, but the idea that AI would come in and change everything and not change HR is, I think, very naive. And I think there's evidence to show that there's a lot of benefit to the HR function and to the business when we change how we work.
I appreciate that. Whether we call it something different, Lane, or Sandra, if we just change what we're doing, we're going to have to evolve with it. That's one of the things I called out earlier is change is going to happen to us, or change is going to happen because we are happening with it. Like we are going along with it. We are leading it. We are thinking about and contributing to it, or it's just going to happen to us. And you're always going to feel like you're in the passenger seat with no control, no say so, no authority at all, which is tough, a tough place to be. So if that's the case, I'm on board with that. I love us already shots fired. Like let's go. Like Lane's like, sure, yes, absolutely. I love that. So Sandra, let's continue that thread you started pulling on there. So everyone talks about AI. But it's AI everything, like agents everything. It's all so vague and so broad that some people are talking about using an LLM for certain things. They're saying AI like it's one thing we can always point at and say, hey, there it is, and it's not. So let's get to some specifics, if you don't mind. You sort of pointed out, hey, EPAM's been doing some really creative stuff. I've seen some of the skills things that y'all are doing. It's mind blowing. So talk about the value for the average person out there listening who's working in learning and talent or in HR. What are the specifics, the value, the opportunity that AI presents?
So there are a number of them. And I like to think about it as, I guess, like threefold. So one is within the HR function is actually improving the work that any individual is doing. And by improving, I mean changing. It's not necessarily better, it's just different. Where instead of doing a lot of the activities that we're doing today, we ourselves are going to be working alongside HR AI agents who are expert at doing very specific tasks. And we're going to be reviewing their work, giving them feedback, adjusting, making changes based on it. And so our work will change to be an organization. Second, we're going to be working with AI enabled a simpler. And then the third thing, and this is the most interesting thing, is not what it does within the do, is actually to see end to end the employee journey, to actually leverage insights gained in the hiring process, in learning, or in talent performance management. Like it creates an entire infrastructure to help us support employees across their journey and not just focus so narrowly on our very, very specific step in that process.
So Lane, we heard from Sandra this range of different things. I love the not just in the silos, but in the life cycle of talent and all those pieces there. What are your thoughts on some of the value that AI offers? Again, the average person out there. Some people are farther ahead, some people are farther behind, but anyone out there that's listening right now that's trying to do this work, what should they be looking for in terms of value?
You're right. It depends on their learning curve that they're approaching. It depends on what their organizations are open to. You hear about AI nativity, you hear about AI and industry agnosticism when it comes to the HR field. And I think leveraging it to where you're at, both in your learning journey and what your company needs. So, I mean, LLMs right now are what we see. If you ask any like true techie, like AI, and they're like, it's not really AI. It's not AI, guys. So it's very interesting having these conversations with people that expect this automated intelligence. In reality, it's just an additional resource for us to offset. So if it's something that's just getting started in their journey, it's a great opportunity to utilize for research purposes. There's so many tools out there where you can pull the thread. If I think back to 15 years ago, writing a policy would take me an hour of research, 1 hour of writing, and then an hour of review from a peer that knew more than I did to make sure everything was correct. And then I go back on third or fourth drafts. Now it takes me 10 minutes of research and understanding, maybe 13 seconds of actually writing it. And then the review process is actually more involved than it used to be. So the creative aspect of what people can utilize it for is very high. If you are already into your learning journey, LLMs are second nature to you. You have your prompt engineering down, you have a system, you have customization going on. Then you start looking at the nativity that Sandra was saying. The AI native tools inside our tool sets now are elevating HR as our capability. So the amount of time it took you to use Excel or use Sheets to manipulate data sets, do pivot tables, do V or X lookups, move the data where you need it to go, to put together a chart that is customized to match all of the different marketing styles and structures and colors that you need to have to present to a board would take hours or a team to do all this manipulation. Now you have a resource that can help do that within a tool. It can pull the data that you're asking for, give you that data for you to make informed decisions. And then all of the automation, the integration between tool sets is not only happening now, but it's so important going forward as companies start looking at, again, at HR as like a cost center rather than a strategic advantage. I've heard bubblings everywhere about how the CHRO is now elevated as the CEO's number one resource, their right-hand person, because of the empathy, the change management, their experience, understanding all the parts and pieces. I 100% agree with that. At the same time, you have viral videos going off about how AI is going to offset the need for HR. And I think that if you think about it from both perspectives, you're elevating the function with your strategic advantage while automating the mundane, the monotonous tasks, the integrations between tool sets that can then manipulate the data fields without you having to have direct involvement, aside from that human intervention when needed.
I feel like you threw in VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP just to show some nerd street cred there. Like it
Super
wasn't
nerd.
like
Yep.
both. I see some organizations that are larger that have started to split out, similar to what you both sort of teased out earlier, where we have the very compliance focused, just are we checking the boxes? That level of thing is almost like the compliance department. And then the HR or the people side is more of the strategy, more of the talent side, more of the development skills, the bigger picture. How do we align with the business and make things move forward as an organization? And that sort of split to me is sort of what you're talking about there, where there's those things that we sort of take for granted, like that should be handled and it doesn't change and it's the same every corner. Okay. Y'all remember that beginning part where we said this is a live stream and sometimes wacky stuff happens? Yeah. So it was not any of you. It was something up with the video and how it queued up. So yes, we lost sound on that one. And in order to fix that, it's going to take us a bit. So what we are going to do is we're going to actually end up wrapping up a little bit early today. We're going to wrap that panel, get it together. We're going to send it out as a separate standalone piece so you can hear that, because I don't want to short circuit all the good stuff from Lane and from Sandra. And we'll make sure and get that out as a podcast episode as well on my podcast, We're Only Human, to really explore that. Apologies that we lost that last bit of it, because again, as I mentioned earlier, the fun for me in that conversation was we started taking it piece by piece, step by step. What does it mean for our function? We looked at what does it mean for us as individuals and practitioners in this space? And then even at the business level, what does it look like? And some of the comments and discussion earlier in the chat around that, people saying, well, is this transformational? The business is looking for these things. We got into the weeds of, should companies be seeing this as an efficiency play? And what are the costs of doing that? Because if we're just looking at efficiency from the employer side, right now, you snap your fingers, we can replace people and some jobs and tasks with some AI tools. Tomorrow, the books look better. But you see these stories coming out from companies that tried that earlier on, George, like Klarna, the Afterpay company. They actually set this up and they put that out there so that they replaced hundreds of customer service agents with an AI tool. And we're celebrating that. Look at what we did. Isn't this so great? And then less than a year later, like, oh yeah, we needed people because it's not working out. Customers were not happy. They needed a real person to actually interact with and talk to. And so they may bring back fewer people, but they're bringing some people back. And that sort of thing is going to happen when people swing that pendulum too far to the automation side and they lose that human touch. It costs them something, and customers or in employees that are leaving because they hate that feeling, and they have to come back after that and try to make it right. So we talk through all those sorts of things and how that plays together. George, while I get these winners together for us to announce in just a moment, I don't know if you heard anything in that session that you want to comment on or talk about, or anything that you want to say there around the business side of that, as someone who's been a business leader, a business manager on that side of it, not even in the HR side. What will be your take on that as a short-term wins versus long-term value of swapping out people for some algorithm or some tool?
Yeah, I'll connect it to what I'm strong at, Ben, and talk about, how do you maintain that and strengthen that with what we just ended on in our previous conversation on the culture, right? And in the beginning, I mentioned one of the things that you said AI could not replace, and that was belonging. The bottom left side of your screen, you had belonging was there. And so for me, when I think about from a business side of things, when I think business, I think people. Sometimes in business, most people go say business and they think profit, but I always feel like you got to use your profit to impact your people, not use people to impact your profit. And whenever you have that the other way around, it becomes less human, and most companies become more tech driven. And so for me, I desire to maintain or make sure that my culture of belonging when it comes to AI and other tools that could reduce the person-to-person interactions. Some of the things I believe is designing moments that are intentional. We talked about transparency. We talked about flexibility. We talked about adapting. I think there has to be an intentional connection as well when it comes to those things. And so for me, when it comes to those AI, how you strengthen those cultures, how you strengthen a culture of belonging, let's even speak for those who are still, working at home or hybrid work. Some of my favorite times during whatever happened 5 years ago was I had the opportunity to have virtual coffee chats with a lot of people that I would never just sit down on a screen like this and have virtual chats. One of the things that we launched, Ben, is HR Summer School lunch breaks, and we have lunch break segments now monthly where we're chatting around lunchtime on those things. And so you have those hybrid collaboration days, and then I would even throw in peer recognition programs. To be able to balance out the AI, the digital efficiency with some of the human presence. Because for me, when it comes to belonging, as you mentioned, AI cannot replace belonging. Belonging thrives when people feel seen and heard. We use the psychological definition of belonging as employees to managers that feel accepted, appreciated, and respected by their direct leaders. So accepted, respected, appreciated. Those three things, when it comes to belonging and thriving, that's valuable for me. So we as leaders and HR professionals, we must actively create that space for personal time, for personal stories, shared experiences. I think, and I truly believe, when we create that type of presence, and it's something that I'm very passionate about now, that I've been diving into is, for me, what does it take to have an atmosphere and a culture, not just of engaging, right? That was a real hot topic. How do we keep employees engaged? And I start thinking, man, once they're engaged, what happens then? If I'm thinking as a business owner, I want my people to be effective. So what happens after they're effective? I want them to be efficient. What happens after they're efficient? Those are 3 E's. I didn't do that on purpose, but there is 3 E's to success, right? You want to be engaged. You want them to be effective. You want them to be efficient. But then I also think of how I want them to belong. And then from belonging, I think I want to create this psychological safety. I think that's the next step. You can't create psychological safety in the workplace with AI and technology alone. You have to have human centered your mindset. You got to have a heart for people. And for me, those are roots to all things, from engagement to belonging to psychological safety. You have to be able to pivot and keep that structure in place.
Not only can you not do it with AI, I would argue that AI is a threat to that sense of psychological safety, right? One of the things I was going to comment earlier, someone had put in the chat about people connecting digitally, and we touched on this a little bit before your mini session a few minutes ago. But one of the things that I posted a video on LinkedIn maybe a week or two ago now, saying I'm seeing people that are using AI to do everything from counseling to being a coach to helping with all these things. And in some cases, people are becoming so reliant and dependent on that used to, I would say, hey, George, I want to get your take on this. And now I just go straight to ChatGPT or Claude or whatever tool you're using. And we're building bridges to things, not to people.
Yeah.
And long term, those things are not going to sustain you. Those things are not going to support you. They're not going to serve you. And so last night I was out for a walk during my daughter's gymnastics class. I was just breathing in nature and thinking how beautiful it was. And I had the quote went through my mind: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And we're grateful to be going together with all of you out there as part of this community, and excited for the impact that you're all having in your workplaces and in your communities as well. So let's give some stuff away, George. We always do with this one. So we grabbed some names here from the chat, people that were chiming in, being supportive, engaging, asking questions, all those things. So if your name's here, take a screenshot if you need to. You can reach out to Jill on our team at events@lhra.io, that email address there, and just tell Jill that you won the AI for HR course. She knows what we're giving away today. And for each of you, this will take you a level deeper than what we got into today. And what I could in my short session, where I'll walk you through some interesting use cases, ideas that you can use, some creative ways that I've seen companies doing this, and really being super, super practical in the conversation around what AI is, what it means for us. And not only that, but what are the human skills of HR and of work that AI can't replace, and how do we build those and lean more into that? So great content, great insights there in that piece of content. And so you get that for participating with us today. And I want to also just wrap up and say thank you again to Daxtra. Don, was a great session, great comments, conversation there. And again, he was in the chat, just engaged. He was so excited about this. And I was like, I didn't know. Technology guy in front of the HR people, he was all about it. So he did a great job. So thank you to them for supporting today. If you need your codes, credits for HRCI or SHRM, you can get those right here. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, apologies for that last issue with the panel. I don't want to shortcut Sandra or Lane, because each of them separately are brilliant and have so many good things to share with us. And together, that panel, I told them I could have recorded for like 3 hours with them. And I won't subject you to that, but it's a good 35 minutes or so of just diving deep into this from two people that I respect highly. And I know you'll appreciate what they have to share. So we'll make sure and get that out for you as a standalone piece. You can just watch that one at your convenience and get into that. And George, anything you want to say to wrap up today?
I'll just end with, when you think about AI and you think about human eye, the outcomes for me is what's transformational and then what's transactional. And for culture, for people in general, let's get rid of all the words and just say humans. I'm in a relationship, friendship, membership, whatever ship I'm riding on, Ben, right? Ben ship. I'm in it for transformation, not for transaction. And that comes from human empathy, that comes from human caring, that comes from compassion. And so as much as I love AI, and there's been some fun things that I've loved doing with AI, but what it will never replace is a phone call. I'm still old school. I still prefer calls versus text every once in a while. Now, don't call me too much. But in all seriousness, man, I like transformation versus transactions. That's at the top of my mind. If I look at AI, is this transformational? Is this transactional? When it comes to my employees and my team, does this a conversation or is this an email, right? Is this a text or is this a phone call? I think there's situations that we have to be able to discern. And I think as leaders, that's a word that we should think about. Like, we need to have a spirit of discernment when it comes to some of the decisions we make. AI is great, but AI could also replace a lot of the skill sets that you have. And like you said, when you're using it as a counselor and a coach and a mentor, you lose that connection, that emotional connection that AI can't give you. And sometimes we need to have that stern friendship
in the rear, George.
Yeah. So we need that friend that just gives us back to reality. Reality, AI doesn't shake you to say, get your stuff together, or listen, you're better than what you're giving yourself you credit for. Believing yourself, right? The whole mindset, the battle of the mind. AI is not going to say, hey, you have this in you. So I think it's important, as much as we use it for coaching and counseling, we still need people. We're not going anywhere.
Goodness. I want to like stand up and applaud, and we kind of awkward here on the live stream for everybody else, but that's how I feel after hearing that. So I'm seeing the great comments, everybody. Thank you all again for being here today, for chiming in, for doing the work that you're doing, and for your excitement around this, because I have yet to meet someone who's in this community that is not interested in leveling themselves up, leveling their people up in the business, and the impact that you can have. So thank you all for joining us. More good stuff ahead always. We thank you for being part of this community and look forward to seeing you next time.
We want to thank everybody for joining us today on this live stream.
For more information, you can find our website at lhra.io.